What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're gonna be doing some modifications to make this car handle a lot better. I mean, it already handles pretty good, but there's room for improvement. Before we go into that though, I gotta give just a quick couple updates. In the last video, I mentioned that this car has a check engine light saying that bank 1 and bank 2 were running lean. The issue was super simple. Where the header and white pipe meet, there is a leak, and that's before the O2 sensor, so it was just throwing the readings off. I adjusted the V-band fitting, and check engine light's gone away, and it's been good ever since. The other thing is, in the last full-length video I posted, I noted that the exhaust was too loud for my local autocross event. So I went ahead and had a shop modify another muffler that I had, so I'll put a little sound clip in here. The car is significantly quieter, and essentially whenever I go to any of these events where I know noise will be a big concern, I will swap out this muffler for the single tip one. Really my only complaint about the single tip, or I guess there's two complaints about the single tip. I do think a dual exit exhaust looks better on an MR2. The other thing that I would note is that the single tip muffler also has a resonator as part of that setup, and I was really hoping that would help get rid of some of that buzz that you hear when you let off the throttle with the white pipe setup this car has. Unfortunately, it's still there, which is a bit of a bummer. But the bigger thing is it will meet the noise restrictions, so no worries. The last update is that I did end up taking this car to a track day. I took it to Oregon Raceway Park, and it did phenomenally. I drove it all day without a single issue besides one thing. Third gear had a bit of a grind. Before the swap, that was already a problem, so it really wasn't a surprise, and it's already on my radar to put in a different transmission this coming winter. I'm still able to drive the car. Essentially, whenever I'm shifting to third, I just have to take it slow when I can't do it like in an aggressive or quick manner. My hope is to get 1 or 2 more track days in before the end of this year. I'm looking at late September for PIR, and that means I have about almost 2 months actually until that next event. And that's why I'm doing these handling modifications. If I'm able to acquire all the parts for the transmission, I would actually just swap it in early, but there's still a few big key items that I haven't acquired yet. And we'll see if I can get that done in time, but if not, definitely doing the transmission this winter. And I still think the car would be fine as long as I'm just careful putting it into third. Anyways, on to the suspension modifications. The car itself, like I said, it handled pretty well at the event. It's just, there's always room for improvement, and since I have the parts, I figured why not. Essentially, what I got here for the rear of the car is the Wilhelm Raceworks geometry kit. So that's the toe arm, the spacer for the ball joint. This spaces the toe arm down lower. This is the bushing that needs to get pressed in. Over here, you're gonna notice that I have a BC coilover. I'm gonna end up selling the BC coilover, but the reason why I have this is the top hat. I think I wanna try test fitting the top hat with the Fortune Auto coilovers, because this is the old version of the Wilhelm Raceworks top mount, and the old version, it's essentially extreme or standard compared to its new ones where it has multiple settings. I think I'm gonna try test fitting these with the Fortune Autos, see if I end up liking them, and if I do, I'll swap top hats, and then after that, I'll end up selling the coilovers. For the front, it's the rest of the Geo kit. So I got the outer tie rod, I got the spacer for the ball joint, and then I got the Wilhelm Raceworks adjustable strut rod. All these parts actually came off of the other MR2 over there. I've been going back and forth as to what I'm gonna do with this car. One day I've been like, I'm parting it out. The next day I'm like, I'm not parting it out, and I keep flip-flopping back and forth. But at this point, I've decided that, you know, I just need to rip the Band-Aid off, and I'm 100% gonna be parting it out. So that's why I'm taking some of the parts for this car over here. Essentially, the suspension bits that I already taken off are going on this car. I'm also gonna take off the driver side headlight, because that one is actually messed up over there. Taking off the strut bar. Probably gonna keep the bumper for that car as well, because this one is cleaner. And then there's some other like miscellaneous things that I'll be keeping here and there as well. The rest of it though will end up going for sale. Essentially, I'm just little by little taking parts off, throwing them up on Facebook Marketplace. It is a tough decision, but I think it's the right one. At the end of the day, I have limited time and money. So instead of having 2 cars that kind of don't really work that well, I'd rather have one really good car that works really, really well. And this is gonna be that car. Now that we got the updates out of the way, we can start. The Geo kit is super easy to install. Remove the toe arm, push out this bushing, we put the new one in, and then we put the spacer that goes right in between the ball joint here. The installation of the suspension geometry kit is really straightforward and easy. You will need some sort of press to remove the OEM bushing for the toe arm that's on the knuckle. Once that is removed, you have this steel slug that you need to press in. I just used a ball joint press and it worked fine for me. Everything else is bolt on and fits just as it should. And I really want to take a minute to note the quality of the kit, because I ran this on my other car for a few seasons and I haven't had to replace any of the wear items or had any unexpected breakage. The back side of the car is done for now. Everything went together pretty smooth, just like it was supposed to. We're gonna hop over to the front. One thing I want to touch on though is this. I mentioned earlier in the video that obviously I'm not installing the BCs. The Fortune Autos are better all day long, but I did want to swap out these top hats, or at least test fit them, because this is the extreme version. The ones that I'm running on the car right now are the like standard version. I decided against that. I'm not committed to the Fortune Autos long term. I do want to get different coilovers, maybe sometime late next year. And anyways, to run the extreme top hats, I would need to do two things. One is I would need to drill a little hole in the top of the strut. There's the hole that I drilled on this chassis, and that's just so you can access the adjuster for the dampening. The other thing is, with how much it leans the coilover over, it's gonna get really close to the inside here. And realistically, that means I'd have to pull out the hammer and just hammer away to make that clearance, which again, not something I'm ready to commit to, because the Fortune Autos aren't gonna be my forever coilovers for this car. I've driven a few other cars with MCS suspension and it is amazing, but it's so expensive that it's really hard to justify. So I think the next best thing is probably the 808 coilovers. And I have driven a couple MR2s with them and they drove amazing. So that's probably the way I'll end up going. Off camera, I'm just gonna put the wheel back on, put the rear of the car back on the ground, and then we'll pick this up once we got the front tire on. The reason I'm installing this suspension geometry kit is that I lowered my car, and that can negatively impact some of the handling characteristics and just make it harder to handle at the limit. This kit puts the suspension geometry in a more ideal position, which is just gonna make it easier to handle at the limit, and that's always gonna be a good thing when you go to the track. Here I am undoing the OEM strut rod, which is just 2 bolts at the control arm and then 1 bolt on the bracket that attaches to the chassis. The OEM unit on the 93 Plus cars do not have any adjustment, so I'm swapping in this Wilhelm Raceworks strut rod that is actually an OEM part that's been modified so you can adjust the caster. That's incredibly useful for me because of the top hat / wheel setup that I'm running, which causes rubbing on the backside of the wheel well. Went ahead and threw the car back down on the ground, and I'm pretty excited because I think these changes are gonna make the car handle even better. And I do wanna note that I was already happy with the handling. I think this is just gonna take it to that next level. Another thing that just kind of hit me is the fact that like the list of things to do on this car is getting smaller. I mean, on the powertrain side, I want to do the transmission, as I mentioned earlier in the video. And because it's going to see more track days than I initially thought, I think I'm going to maybe do an oil cooler. I got to figure out the temp situation and go from there. Suspension, I'm pretty happy with it. I would just like to swap out to some different coilovers down the road. The interior of the car, I'm actually going to keep it stock. Everything works in this, and I don't really want to ruin that. It even has the stock cassette player, which still works, and that's super cool. I love bragging about that every chance I get. That means there's not going to be too much to do to the interior besides get the seats reupholstered. And then the last and biggest thing will be that this car is eventually going to get painted. My goal is to hopefully paint it late next year, so let's just aim for like an ETA of winter of like 2026, so like a year and a half from now. Well, that's all the car stuff I have left for this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.